Most athletes train strength, speed, and skill. But what about presence? What about emotions? What about being able to hold yourself together when the stakes are the highest? Today, we're joined by Michael Lee, who that's exactly what he teaches. Really great conversation. Welcome to the Athlete Lab podcast, where we discuss everything there is about driving elite performance. Michael, thank you very much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So, physical acting in sport, like what does that mean? I'm super intrigued to talk to you about this today.
Well, take physical acting just as a term. I'm a mime. I'm a mime actor. But when I say mime, people think of a striped shirt, white face.
It's impossible not to, right?
Right,
yeah.
right. It's a stereotype. And so it's a more accessible term. Physical acting, I think of the skaters on the ice, they're not talking, but they're trying to get more drama out of their bodies. And so physical acting is that. I'm not teaching acting for stage. I'm not teaching acting for film, where we might focus on voice. And for physical acting, I use all the techniques I've been learning for the last 40 years from mime and adapting it to the ice. So I come from theater, and I'm teaching them about the presence of how to fill a stage, except the ice rink is a really big stage. And so a really quick example, if you just go like this, like you're touching your heart. And I was just teaching this today. If I go like this on a small stage, it's understandable and believable. But on the ice, they would do this. So there's more space right there. You just create more space to project out in a bigger space, which is also 360. And in the theater, we call that theater in the round. But this is an ice rink with an audience all the way around.
So you have a theater background. Did you skate as a kid? How did those two worlds collide? How did that happen?
I'm laughing because I skated as a kid on a pond. Never considered myself a skater. I didn't take any lessons or anything like that. I just grew up in the country, and we went to the pond and had a bonfire and skated. So skating is not something I went into. Some people may have heard of Ben Augusto. He and his partner, Tanith Belbin, they won the silver medal in the 2006 Olympics. Well, 2007, Ben called me. Said he was a really nice guy, and he said, would you come all the way to Canton, Michigan to work with my partner and me? I said, yeah, you're an hour away, and you got a 2-hour minimum. So I came there, and it's just so simple that things just snowball. So Ben wanted me to teach him how to pick a flower, and it was for their program. And their coach had told them, go find a mime. I'm the mime they found. And so it was so simple. So I taught him how to pick a flower in about 5 minutes, and I reminded him he has a 2-hour minimum. And I said, you're not breathing and you're not acting. This is just pretending to pick a flower. That's nothing. So he looked at me as if I was speaking some other language, and I asked him, do you have any acting experience? And they still looked at me like I was speaking some other language. What do you mean? I said, well, you have ballet, you have other dance forms, you study, you work out, you train. What's your acting? Nothing at all. And so I said, you have this 2-hour minimum, so let me teach you this. It's not just pretend to pick a flower, but your hand is open. If your hand is open, you're inhaling. Again, they look at me, what are you talking about? Your hand is open, so you inhale. That's an expansion move. So expand. Squeeze the flower, that's a contraction, and you go expansion, inhale, contraction, exhale is a basic, not going to say rule, but it's a basic technique. And so we went through that, and I said, okay, so why are you picking the flower? And then we get into character. Why are you picking the flower? And who's this character behind you? And I'll say, what is your name? And he said, my name's Ben. I said, no, your character. Who's your character? I don't know. I'm picking a flower. So we get into character development by asking them the questions about who they are and what they're doing and why they're doing that. And so it just keeps snowballing. That was 2007. Their coach, Marina, that was in June, she hired me for the rest of the summer. The entire, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I was now in the skating world. I wasn't looking for them. She just said, you come back again? You come back? Yeah, I come back. She booked me for the entire rest of the summer and to work with all the other teams that were training there.
Wow.
Full-time employment.
That's a heck of a, to have that type of, first of all, awareness to to go teach something, a lot of people might just kind of walk away, like, all right, I did my job, 2 hours, I'll be home in time. That's it, to like do those next steps. And then for the coach too, I love to hear about open-minded coaches, to see someone that could bring something different than what they were doing. That's incredible.
Yeah. I think that was the transition time when ice dance, and I'm not sure about this, it was really going from ice dance, which was ballroom dance on ice, with, like tuxedos and evening gowns. It was the old style. And you could almost call it more ice drama. And that's what these coaches were doing. They were trying to get more drama, tell stories more, and enliven the sport with more things that are interesting to watch than just the blades.
Yeah. So I have to imagine in theater that when you're practicing, there's no one in the stand, in the audience. It's one thing. Mm-hmm. And then same for practicing on the ice or anything. How do you train that? Like, how do you get into the realm? Okay, you can do it now, but how do you do it when it's the lights are bright?
Oh man!
So what are some of the tricks and stuff you teach kids?
That's a really great question, because, and I struggle with this with skaters. You've got to get the mindset that there is an audience here, and I can do this in a studio or on a stage, and I admit, if I'm in front of a live audience performing my show, I get a lot from them. But physical acting is such a thing that you portray things so fully that you don't need an audience. That if I'm going to smile, for instance, I can do that, but I can also fill up my center, fill up my chest, open my arms. I don't need an audience for that. And so I kind of drill them. This is portraying, this is a physical activity you're doing. It's not it's not an emotional activity. It's a physical activity to portray an emotion so that the audience can feel the effect of that emotion, of that character.
So they're able to control, now they're controlling their controls. They're not worried about what they're getting back.
I hope so.
Excellent.
I struggle with it. It's taken me years and years to sort that out, how to get them ready to go on to that big stage. And there's thousands of people, watching. And so actually there's one thing that we addressed just the other day. The skaters are in their position to start their program. It's the most nerve-wracking, tense moment. They're holding. And what I teach them is, first of all, your program has already started when you entered the ice.
Okay.
And I call it skating into character. And it's kind of tricky because I tell them on stage, I can come off stage, I can go on stage, I can use lights, I can use all that stuff. You don't have all that stuff. So you've got to come on presented as Phil and Michael, we're doing this. So the audience recognizes us as individual people, and then over the next 30 seconds, they transform into their character, play to the audience a little bit. You think of like any Spanish dance, a tango, and the guy is kind of macho and the woman is kind of flirty. Well, they start doing that to the audience. They're getting into their character right in front of the audience's eyes. So by the time they stop and wait for the music to start, they're already 100% in character. They're not going to go out there and pose and stop, because then they're at the mercy of the guy finding the play button on the CD player, right? And they're tense. But instead, they get there, they stop. If their first move is going to go like this, they're going to be exhaling while they're waiting. So they come to that stop and they hold. They know they're going to do this. So while they hold, they're going, and the music starts, and they continue their life as a character, right?
But because they're already there.
They're there, and they're in control. That's what I'm teaching them. They're in control of their space. They're in control of what's going on. They're not there waiting, freezing, panicked, waiting, when is this music going to start? Because that's no way to start the program. They're in it already. Like, you don't want a film director yelling, action! That's not natural to anything.
Right.
Or cut. Nobody goes through their life with action and cut. No. So control your own environment is what you're doing. And then you can have a productive program and you can take the audience right with you.
Along those lines, where does the concept of rich and poor energy come? And how did you start teaching that? I'm super intrigued on that.
You're going to have to write this down now. Jerzy Grotowski
Okay.
was a stage director, and I believe, if I get this right, he's either Polish or Hungarian. He talked about, excuse me, Towards a Poor Theater. And it was the name of his book, Towards a Poor Theater. And rich and poor means that there's these elements of theater: music, stagecraft, props, costume, excuse me, language, and the actor. So what rich and poor means, and it's best to do it by example. If you go to see Shakespeare, you want to hear the language. The language is the richest thing. If you go to see a clown performance, or you see a clown, their costume is probably the richest thing. If you go to a dance performance, the movement should be really important, but the music is rich. And so what we teach is, a skater, for instance, they only have 3 of those elements. They've got the body, the music, and the costume. And we try to make the costume not be the most important thing. We don't make the music the most important thing. We make the skating performance the most important thing. So to make it the richest. So, for instance, on Shakespeare, and I've been a movement coach on Shakespeare plays. Now, this is kind of contrary. I'm a movement actor and I'm a movement director. I make the movements poor in a Shakespeare play. Not bad. If they're too rich, they overpower the language. That's where we get to the rich and poor. And so the language is the richest thing. So if it's a fight scene, maybe I'm not going to go over the top. I'm going to take it in a little bit lower. Make the movements a little more poor than the language. I play a clown in one of my mime pieces. I don't put on a clown costume. I just put on a colorful vest and a red hat. So it suggests clown, but doesn't overpower the character. And the best example was when Charlie White and Meryl Davis did Phantom of the Opera. And everybody knows that music. You hear it right from the beginning. You know what it is. And I don't remember what year this was. They won the gold medal twice. No, they won the gold medal in 2014. I don't remember. Here was Charlie going to play the Phantom of the Opera. He can't wear a mask. They won't allow it on the ice. He's got a mop top of blonde hair. He does not look like the Phantom of the Opera. And I told Charlie that year, I said, you've got this music that is so rich. People are going to expect that. So we worked on his acting, his I don't want to say gesture, but his actions, his movements, so that he overcame in his acting the richness of that music. So then we see, what's the Phantom going through? What are his experiences with Christine? What's the Phantom going through? Oh, and yeah, by the way, there's this music playing. You see that we made that rich music poor without changing it.
That, when I read this and research the rich and poor energy, that's not close to what I was thinking. But you can tell that you've taught it so long because it was simple, and I really get it. It's really interesting. So if an athlete wanted to train that, so they get an hour with you, and you're like, this is what you have to do, and the competition's in 6 months, let's say. Okay. What type of things are you telling them that they should be doing on their own to practice that type of things? I feel like that's something where you might need somebody else to really recognize it. Is there ways that you ask athletes to, put in their own time, I guess, if you will?
I'm glad you said it, because I do more and more give homework. And honestly, and I've told skaters this, you can be all dramatic when you're with me, but it doesn't mean anything if you're not going to take it and go there. We can be in the dance studio. If you're not going to take it to the ice, stop wasting my time and wasting your money. Right? So do it. And then, first of all, them doing something on their own means that they internalize it, means that they assimilate it into their being. So something like with an athlete, let's say, and I can use any athlete, doesn't matter if it's a sport or a dramatic sport like ice dance or football or basketball or hockey. First of all, separate, an athletic sport from a dramatic sport. And we don't ask hockey players to be dramatic, but you watch a basketball game and you can see the drama unfold, or a football game, you see the drama, but they're not focusing on that. That's what the announcers work on, right? But in order for an athlete, let's just say own the space. You can watch somebody. They own the space. Michael Jordan, take over a game. LeBron does it. If he decides he's going to take over this game, he's going to take over the game. That's attitude, right? It's attitude. And so doesn't mean that you're going to overpower everyone else, because a team sport, hockey or basketball is a team sport. But there is a sense of presence that you cultivate. Now, we're sitting here in this room. I know what's behind me. I'm aware there's people out there. I'm aware of people over here. I'm kind of aware of this all the time. And we were saying earlier, Jokic.
Yeah, basketball
player. Jokic. I apologize if I butcher his name. I watch that man play, and it's beautiful because he sees everything. He's looking at you, and he's throwing the basketball that way, and the guy's catching it, and they score. I love watching those kind of highlights. I mean, first of all, he's probably like 6'11", and he sees over everybody. But imagine if you're that tall. But you can also just cultivate it. I walked in here today, and I didn't just look at the person behind the counter. I kind of like scoped the room, And for me, it's just because I perform and I teach in space. I'm aware of space. And I'm being really careful right now not to say, you got to walk in the room and take over the room. It's not a fair, good person necessarily to be, just overpower everybody. It's take responsibility for your own space, your space that's around you, and be in control of it.
That type of presence, and the fact that you use the term cultivate the presence, like that is like that's exciting to me, because I think that there might be people who think that you either have it or you don't, or you have this presence about you. I've been fortunate to work with some people who have been the best in the world at what they do, and even now, years after retirement, they walk in, there's a presence.
Yeah.
But the fact that can be cultivated, I think it should be music to everyone's listening's ears, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be great at something in order to walk into. It means that you can cultivate that presence, because it's really powerful.
Yeah. When I work with children, I do this exercise with them, and I teach them how to float their head. And you can do it now. Okay. Just gently feel like your head is floating. Yeah. It's kind of simple. I'm not going to say sit up straight. If I said sit up straight, we get this stiffness. So when I teach people, sometimes I'll just barely lightly touch the back right here, and I'll just make this little invitation with my hands to float your head. And it's not lifting the chin, because that actually crushes the neck. But if I float the top of my head up, and this is very minuscule or tiny, but imagine that your vertebrae, right, are like this. And we think of vertebrae, then we have the discs, right, in between. Well, the vertebrae or the discs are not flat. They're like donuts. So bring your hand over here, and here's your vertebrae. Actually, you be the flat hand, you could be the disc. And put that there. So here's a vertebrae, here's a disc, here's another vertebrae. When we slouch, that's what we're doing. Bam, bam, bam. Now, when I float my head, and if I do this without your hand there, my hands hover. Now, this is tiny movement. But even when I'm sitting down, I'm floating my head, so it's taking this pressure off of every vertebrae. And I'm floating, hovering my vertebrae. And then I love this with 10-year-olds. I say, I'm not going to make you taller, but I'm going to invite you to be as tall as you are. And 2 inches, and you're there, and you're there, and you're there. Now, I'm not lifting up or anything. I'm just floating my head. And you walk into a room, people go, oh, look at that person, without even saying it out loud. They notice the person who is present. It's kind of mind-blowing.
For those listening, like when you go through that, it really is. You could feel that, and especially that cue. Don't lift your chin, as I did, because that's like, oh, wait a second, float your head.
I have to tell you something. I've seen skating coaches do this, and I get mad at them. I don't want to see a skating coach. They do this to the women. They're going like this: lift your chin, because often ice dance, the woman is shorter than the man, and so they're doing this. I go, stop that! You're hurting them. You're telling them to lift their chin, and they're crushing their neck. But if you teach them to go up here, lift from here, open up from here, the height difference kind of goes away. There's a presence to both people. You don't do this. I mean, does that look attractive? It hurts to look at something like that. So we do this, we think that's helping. I go, no, don't do that. You float here. This person here, shorter or taller, doesn't matter. They're both expanding their space in this way. And it's healthy too.
Yeah,
It's probably healthy.
yeah, breathe better, all the things. Like that's So there's two things on that. First of all, you're charged with talking to a coach like that.
Yeah.
As someone without a skating background. Now you're dealing with Olympic athletes, they're coaching Olympians, and now you're going to say, hey, no, you're doing it.
Yeah, the mime is advising, right?
Right, exactly. I mean,
Or you.
Yeah, I mean, and even as you explain that, it makes a ton of sense to me as a layperson, just a fan of the sport. But when you do that, like what type of things have you kind of ran into with coaches? Do they always meet that with, open-mindedness, or has there been some give and take a little bit?
Well, everybody has their ego, right? And I wouldn't do that in front of everybody else. I would talk to a coach off to the side. This particular coach who did it was a visiting coach from somewhere else, and he was actually a retired coach. I think he was in his 80s. And when I saw him do that, I'm sorry, I didn't filter. I got after him because I saw that he was damaging. He was actually physically damaging somebody to teach them to do that. So often I would say there's a different way. And hopefully, because the other coaches aren't really doing this, but they're watching me on the ice. If I'm working on the ice with a team, I'll show them that I'm not showing the coaches. I just notice if they're paying attention to it. And most of the ones I work with are. They respect what this work is. And so, like from a side, instead of doing this, which is sort of like my body straight and then my neck cranks, I'll say, make yourself part of a circle. So my circle is going down through my feet, through the floor. It's coming back there somewhere 7 or 8 feet. It's circling around here, coming down through my head. If I'm doing something like that on the ice, you can bet coaches are watching. What the heck is he doing? And I'm not doing it to show off to them. I just know that I'm doing something different, and it's going to affect these skaters in a positive way. It's going to bring their presence more. It's going to make them more dramatic and everything. So sometimes they'll ask me, but I think I'm really lucky. The coaches that I work with here in Novi, they respect what I'm doing. And that's a crucial part. That, they want to win points, of course. They want to win competitions. And frankly, I don't care about points. I don't care about them at all. I don't care about judges. I care about the audience and the experience that these skaters are going to have and what they're going to present to the audience.
That's another thing. You're teaching them to control what they can control, because they can't really control the judges. That's a whole nother layer.
That's right.
So speaking of points, you have worked with a lot of skaters who do care a lot about it because they've gone on to the Olympics. So
yeah.
What is your experience working with the highest level of athlete? Is there anything that separates those that get to that area that stood out to you over the years?
There's a couple things that come to my mind. One is the ones that get the light bulb going off and they go, yeah. Oh, like they're going to incorporate breathing into every single thing they do. They go home and practice, like we mentioned earlier. They do it. I've had about 3 skaters in the last 18 years who didn't agree with what I was doing. And frankly, I said, I don't care. I'm going to make more money. You're going to keep hiring me. You're going to refuse to do what I'm doing. And I'm not doing this out of ego. I want the best for them. So the level that they train at just blows my mind, first of all. If you're going to be in the Olympics, you're going to be doing 4 run-throughs in a day. And you're not going to complain about doing 4 run-throughs. You're going to do them and get better each one. You're going to say, hey, let's do a 5th one for celebration. They dread these things sometimes. Like, no. I had skaters this morning doing this. They said that. Oh my God, we're going to have a bad day. I was like, why? It's just started. How about the rest of your day getting better? We got to do 4 run-throughs. You've got to do 4 run-throughs? Is somebody making you do this? Is this a voluntary activity? Do you want to get to the Olympics? They're not in prison here.
Right.
Right? So they did one of their run-throughs, and I said, good, you only got 4 more. She said, no, 3 more. I said, no, do 4 more. I mean, I know it's exhausting, right? But it's only 4 minutes. And I don't have any sympathy for it. But the other thing that, and I'll mention Evan Bates. Evan Bates skates with Madison Chalk. And I just love them both. And I used to coach them. They're training in Canada. They do the homework beyond the acting that I give them. They were doing a program one time, I think it was based on Italian opera or something. I don't remember what the program was. I said, I want you to go home, put your music for your program on, and make dinner. In fact, why don't you make Italian pasta and make the best sauce you can possibly come up with while your program music is on loop, and have a great time and absorb that. Put that music on and do something that's not skating, but while you're making Italian food, have a blast. And Evan, bless his heart, because I will never forget, he said, you're not just trying to make us better skaters. We're becoming better people. My work is done here.
Wow.
Because that's, you know, when a skater can get that, and they'll be in the Olympics again, right? When they can get that, Evan, he just blew me away that he got, this is like 10 years ago. He said that. Like, no, we're being better people. And I know this from training other things. You know, if you're a mime, be a good poet. If you're a poet, be a good musician. If you're a good musician, be a good cook. You know, like broaden yourself out to be a better person, you know, enliven yourself, and then, you know, everything kind of falls into place. You just get a deeper appreciation.
I can't think of a higher compliment to get from someone you're coaching than what Evan told you. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Because obviously buying in, like, that is unbelievable. And it is, you hear about actors in general, they get a part and they just live it. Like, they go home, that's their character. To the point on, you know, how many run-throughs. I read yesterday, Tiger Woods said, you know, when he was winning, he was making 300 4-foot putts a day. Wow. He would just sit there over, and there's just, while there are a lot of things that go into it, you know, there's no real secrets. You know, it's just doing it and wanting to do it, and then going home and making that Italian food and listening to your music and having it embody you.
It's not magic. I mean, people, you know, the lay people hear this, like, you know, like, he does that, right? And they say, well, he got into a zone. Yeah, you can get into a zone. You can get into a zone in anything.
Right.
But you got to do it to get there. You can't. I have one skater now, I'll say, okay, I want you to move in this way. And he'll stand there like this and think. I go, no. You don't get to think about what you're going to do. If I'm asking you to play a musical part, don't think about the music you're going to play. Start keying the piano, start playing it, play your body, start to move, and then the breath will be there and you'll come up to it. And now you're doing the art that we're all practicing. So do it to find this.
That's a great way of looking at it. So kind of to that point, when you mentioned basketball players, like, if you were to take some of the things that you teach in your sport, and how would you translate it to other, let's say a football coach is or listening, or a tennis coach, or somebody who's trying to get better at pickleball, you know, like, which there's a lot of those people there. Yeah. How would you take some of the things that you teach, and how would that translate to other sports, do you think?
That's going to be really good questions. They're making me think about this stuff deeper. One of the ways that I approach any activity that I'm going to coach, like, I'm not a skater. It's seeing something, the projection of something. So if I take this bottle and I go like that, I know it's going over there. And if I scoot it far enough and it goes off the table, I can see it already going there, right? And you can too. You just see it. You know it's going to go that way because I started to do that. So if I'm thinking about tennis, and I'm not a tennis player, but what's the goal? Get the ball over the net and get it past your opponent, right? And so, I love to watch tennis because I love watching that thing they do.
The
twist, whatever they do.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All the spins and stuff they put on. And so if I'm going to hit a tennis ball with a tennis racket or pickleball, then I can't just stop here. You know, in baseball, you got to keep your eye on the ball and hit it. But a tennis or pickleball, I'm going to direct it somewhere. I want to put that. I mean, baseball, I love baseball, but how does a guy hit to the opposite field? When that ball's cut, it's so darn fast. That's why the hitters are so great. But, you're coming here. If I'm going to hit that, if I just want to survive hitting it, yeah, it might get over the net. But if I want to put it there we're back to our spatial awareness, our intention of where we're going with it, what I'm going to do with it. So that's where competitive sports, it can be played. Football, I guess a quarterback knows where that ball is going, right? They're leading the receiver. I'm thinking more about hockey because I definitely don't play hockey, but I love watching it. And it's so beautiful. From looking from not a sports fan viewpoint, the movement that is constantly going and they're leading and cutting back and everything like that. I even wonder if that's human, because it's so beautiful. But it's the seeing, like Jokic, seeing things, but not just seeing them, making a decision to direct them.
And then being able to execute at the pace of what they're doing it.
Yeah. I'm going there. I'm not going over there. And this is kind of a strange sidebar. I own and teach on my horses. I teach horseback riding. And I'm always teaching my riders, don't look at the horse's head. Direct the horse's head. You want to ride somewhere? We're going there. Look there. There goes the horse. Look over there. There goes the horse. Wow. And so moving my body into an animal like that, and if I turn my head, the horse's body turns. There's a lot more to it, of course, but it's intention. It's proactively moving the animal instead of reacting to the animal. And that's what a lot of people do. They wait for the horse to misbehave. They wait for the horse to, oh no, I'm going to survive this. No. Just direct the animal. And that's my job, is to teach the skills of that. But that's intentionality.
That concept of being intentional on things you can control, it's so easy to think how that translates to everything like evidence that make you a better person.
Yeah.
Those are really, really good teaching elements. You teach horseback riding too. That's incredible.
It all makes sense to me.
Did you ride horses as a kid, or is that? Oh, okay.
Grew up all the time. Yeah. Never had any lessons, but through movement, I learned more. And then as an adult, I started training in how to train horses and just keep going through different levels. And I worked with Mustangs a fair amount and getting a communication with them. Yeah. But it's when we're talking about intentionality, I just want to be clear. This is not type A personality. It's not blasting through things and damn whoever's in the way. It's just being clear. And to go back to horses, they are so well behaved and so attentive when we're clear. If I'm clearly giving this instruction, this is what I want you to do. But if I'm wishy-washy, mushy in what I want, I'm not sure what I want you to do. Or if I'm a director directing a cast or coaching athletes, if I'm not being clear, it's on me. If they're confused, it's not their fault. I have to back up and meet them. Oh, my fault. I didn't explain that before. Okay. Which as a teacher, you have to meet the student where they are anyway.
Right. And you have to be accountable to what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And if you're not doing that, then it's on you as a teacher or the coach or the...
Definitely. Yeah. It's really easy to get mad at somebody for what they don't know. But if they don't know it, it's on you, right? If you're the teacher, right? If you're the coach, you gotta make this clear. So I run the risk of sounding redundant or repetitive, and I say, I don't care. You're obviously showing me that you don't understand. It's not an insult, but I'm going to show you this again. I'm going to back up here and do this again. This is what I want. Okay, now do it. Not quite. Back up. So when we get to the skaters, we are breaking things down into tiny little parts and making them decisions about them.
And all of this came from someone asking you to pull up a flower, teach them how to pull a flower.
Right.
Incredible. Michael, I could talk to you for hours and hours. I really appreciate your time and being on the Athlete Lab podcast. So good luck. I hope your skaters do great in the upcoming Olympics and your horseback riding. And it's a real pleasure. Thanks a lot for your time.
You're welcome. This is a pleasure.